As I mentioned earlier, there's basically, and there's more than one way to do this, but in essence, there's two ways that you could be networking, right? You could be showing up as a hunter or as a farmer, and that's sort of the analogy that Cynthia uses in her framework, right? So the hunter, as I'm sure you could imagine, is the person who comes in and sees you, Ethan, in the room and is like, "Oh, I looked at Ethan's profile on LinkedIn. I know exactly what he does, and he's my customer. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go right up to him and I'm going to try to get Ethan to buy my thing." Right. And not even realizing that maybe Ethan, you didn't update your LinkedIn profile or you started a new company or whatever it is. They don't really know who you are, but they're coming in and they've got they've got your name on a list and they're there to get what they want, right? So that's the hunting version, right? And oftentimes what happens is people do the spray and pray treatment, right, on their marketing game. When they show, they're like, hey, here's my business card, and they start pushing off their business card as if you're even interested in talking to them and having a conversation. And anyways, the bottom line is that way of, well, and then let's be real, you also then end up on an email list and then you start getting spammed and then you just get annoyed. I mean, there's nothing about that experience that feels empowering, exciting, fulfilling, joyful, to be honest. Okay, and maybe that's my bias, but the alternative to that is the gardening metaphor, right? Where everybody is a part of this beautiful garden, and all we need to do is water our garden, nurture our garden, take care of each other, show up as a part of this ecosystem, understand that some relationships don't bear fruit until you get to know, well, most relationships don't bear fruit until you get to know the person, build a relationship, cultivate some trust, and get to actually understand each other, right? And anyway, so there's a lot more to what Cynthia would say, and again, I'll put the link in the chat when I have a moment. I do encourage everybody to look at that because it does kind of walk through this sort of approach towards networking in a very clear way with some very practical steps on how to enact that kind of work in your work. But the two things that she teaches that I think are essential that I want to focus on today, which will be the queue up for our breakout rooms. One, which I think most of us have talked about. So if this is new to you, feel free to ask questions. But the PACE acronym, which stands for Passions, Achievements, Communities, Endeavors. In summary, the PACE acronym is a tool that you can use when going into a conversation with somebody to get to know them really quickly, right? So that you can move quicker down the know you, like you, trust you funnel, knowing that the know you, like you, trust you funnel then results in the leads or opportunities or connections that you're looking for. The reality is most people aren't going to introduce you to their best connections until they cultivate that trust with you. They know that email is going to go to you and you're going to handle it well. So you got to work through that KLT funnel, as it's referred to. And you can do that really well with the PACE. If you get to know what somebody's passionate about, what communities they're connected to, what achievements they're proud of, what endeavors they're working on, you can start to see the spaces where you're like, oh, wow, we both share an interest in writing, or we both really love building entrepreneurial communities in Seattle, like whatever the thing is, you can then start to actually build a relationship around that thing that will then result in you starting to like them and eventually getting to know them better and walking down that path towards trust, right? So the PACE is a great tool. The other thing that we talk about in that body of work is the concept of a deposit, right? So the reality is that people are not going to give you referrals again until you get into this trust relationship. And the only way, I want to say the only way, one of the best ways of cultivating trust is showing to somebody that you listened to them and paid attention, right? It's like, oh, so if I tell you I love cats, right? And then the next day you send me a picture of a dog, like thank you. I mean, dogs are great, but I'm not a dog person. I told you I love cats. Why are you sending me a picture of a dog? Right? It might be a silly example, but the point is I can tell you didn't listen to me, right? And so if you think about going into these relationships and you start to go through this pace with somebody, and you learn about what they're passionate about, what they've achieved in their life, what communities they're connected to, and what endeavors they're up to, you start to listen for ways that you can make a deposit into that person's life in the form of, I listened to what you said, and by the way, right? And so what could an example be? Well, I'll use the same example of the cat. Might not be the best example. What if I just tell you, oh my God, I love cats. Cats are like, I'm here for them. Like, I bring my cat to the Zoom call. I show you my cat. We have this whole thing about the cat, right? And then like 1 week later, we're at a at a networking event together, and you're like, hey, by the way, I brought you something, and you reach into your pocket and you pull out a cat toy. I'm like, oh my God, you brought me a cat toy. Like, all of a sudden, I'm excited. I'm like giddy because you thought about me. You took the time to actually go out there, get that cat toy, find what you thought was the right, even if it's not a toy I want to give to my cat, right? Like maybe there's something that my cat doesn't like the color blue. I don't know what, like whatever the reason is that my cat, the fact that you listened to me and took the time to come back and bring that thing a week later for something as simple as my cat, like regardless of whatever else we talked about, like to me, what that says about you is that you actually care about me, or at least seem to care about me enough for me to be like, you know what, Jackie, thank you for that cat toy. That was really funny and totally random. Let's go have a drink and talk about what I can do to support you with your business, because all of a sudden I'm just feeling like I want to support you because I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel witnessed, right? And I think that's the kind of work that we can be doing with each other in this active community building. So what I'm going to ask you to do in our first breakout room is I'm going to send you off into your breakout rooms. It's going to be breakout rooms of 2, right? So it's just going to be you and one other person. And I want you to first go through a pace, right? And you're going to have to keep your eye on the time and make sure that you give each other equitable time to go through the pace. But remember, write this down if you don't have this. P is for passions, A is for achievements, C is for communities, E is for endeavors. Passions, achievements, communities, and endeavors. Thank you, Dan, for putting it in the chat. And go through a pace, and you can be, somewhat mechanical about it. Like, all right, you go first, tell me your first 3 passions. All right, my turn, next 3 passions. And as you're going, you might be compelled to be like, oh, you just said this, say more about that. And dig in a little bit and try to kind of understand who this person really is. And I want you to listen with the intent of searching for a deposit. Right? Searching for a deposit. So if I get into a conversation with Luna and she's like passionate about crystals and she loves, she became a famous dancer at one point in her life, and she's connected to a crochet community, and she's endeavoring to write a book, right? And this is a really bad example. So I'm making all of that up about you right now. But I might hear that and be like, okay, I think I might be able to like introduce her to this really cool, I know what I could do. Send her a podcast that I listened to recently about character development when writing books. Now, Luna, I don't know anything about the book. I don't know what book you're writing. There's obviously questions around that you would want to clarify. But the point is that could be a really valuable indicator for Luna. It's like, oh, wow, Mathew actually listened to something I'm working on and is trying to find a way to support me on my journey. Again, even if the podcast isn't quite the right thing, or she's writing a nonfiction book and the podcast is about fiction writing, whatever. The point is that I actually listened to something and tried to make a contribution, and Luna's going to notice that, right? So you're going in, you're doing a pace, then you're seeking for that deposit. Now, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do before I send you off into your break rooms, in one sentence, you have to describe what this person does in the world. And I'm going to give you the formula for that, okay? Here's the formula. And again, in this example, Ethan, if you get paired up with Morgan, right? You're going to say, hi, my name is Ethan, and I had the chance to meet Morgan, right? Morgan helps insert blank with insert blank. And it could be one sentence, right? Morgan helps insert blank with insert blank. And then you can reflect back, in doing our pace, one of the things that I heard was Morgan was really passionate about, I think you have a cactus in your background, so plants. And so knowing what I know, a meaningful deposit might be inviting her to go to the Northwest Plant Show, right? Okay, that's a really good, that's the formula that we're working with, okay? All right, I know that's a tall order. It's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I'm gonna give you, let's see, do we feel like 12 minutes is enough? That's 6 minutes per person. I think that should be sufficient for you to be able to dive in, meet the person, go through a quick version of the pace, get your, I met Luna, she helps blank with blank, and come back with some deposit ideas. Just, I think we can do this. All right, here we go.